I'm going to start this festival by just saying I am the oldest person at Turner Classic Movies. I am. Behind the scenes, in front of the camera, everything. I'm the oldest person there. I have been doing my own film festival, the Noir City Film Festival, in this theater. This is where my whole Czar of Noir business began. In this theater 27 years ago. This theater was brand new. I mean, it was 1922 when it was built, but it had been restored for the American Cinematheque back then in 1999. And I have watched it deteriorate over all those years and then be brought back thanks to Netflix now owning this theater. And they've restored it magnificently. And I just want to say that it's all because of that festival that I am now on TCM. Because one of those years, 17 years ago, Genevieve McGillicuddy, our fearless leader, the director of the TCM Classic Film Festival, she called me on the phone and said, "You have the dates we want in April for our inaugural film festival." And so I said, well, if I get off my dates and give you those, what are you going to do for me? And here I am. It didn't happen quite that fast, but you get the idea. Okay, I am so thrilled to see a packed house tonight for the ultimate example of film noir. If I was showing Double Indemnity, I would say the exact same thing. But this is the most romantic and spellbinding version of film noir possible, and I am so thrilled that I get to introduce this with this fabulous person who I think more people crushed on her in China Beach than any actress on television ever, and they're still crushing on her today. Okay, so welcome to the stage, the fabulous Dana Delaney. They're giving us so much time, we actually get to sit. So I think this is a luxury for us. Oh, very good, very good. Okay, where do we start with Out of the Past? Well, I'm going to start with the theme of the festival this year, which is the world comes to Hollywood. The understanding that so many people who have made Hollywood history and the films that we love, they didn't come from Los Angeles, okay? They all arrived here from other places. And the director of this film, Jacques Tourneur, his father, Maurice Tourneur, was a very established and well-known film director in France, and Jacques kind of grew up on sound stages and things, and it was like in his blood from the earliest time. And of course, he came to prominence at RKO, which I call the House of Noir. They were the studio that made more of these kinds of films than any other. And he cut his teeth making B movies in the fabulous B unit at RKO for the very influential Val Lewton, who did these wonderful B horror movies. And Jacques Tourneur had done Cat People, and I Walked with a Zombie, and all these fabulous things. And then he graduated up to making this film. Dana, what do you like most about this film? And I know you're going to say Robert Mitchum.
Well, as an actor, I find it fascinating because some of the greatest lines in any movie ever, and all memorable. I mean, just starting with Baby I Don't Care, which kind of defined who Mitchum was. But I have a question for you, because we know it was based on the Daniel Manwaring novel, and then James A. Cain took a shot at it, and then Frank Fenton took a shot at it. So who do you think came up with all those lines? Because they're so memorable.
My understanding is that Daniel Manwaring from Oakland, California, wrote the novel Build My Gallows High, which is probably, I would vote for that as the most difficult to deliver line in a movie ever, right? How do you have an actor say, well, baby, then build my gallows high? I mean, who in the world says something like that, right? I I contend that Robert Mitchum is the only actor in the world who can actually say that and make it seem legitimate, right? James M. Cain's draft of this was not good. And Daniel Mannering actually wrote most of what is the final script. But they brought Frank Fenton in, who was British, for whatever that matters, to write Mitchum's voiceover. So all of the best lines are in Mitchum's voiceover.
Which happened because there were a lot of holes in the script. There's a famous thing where Mitchum says to Greer, I think they lost 3 Mimeo pages, don't tell anybody. They just couldn't figure out what was happening. And I feel like that informs Mitchum's performance because everybody talks about, baby, I don't care. But I think he had a slight indifference to the story and the script that kept him kind of laid back and just, all right, let's just see where this is going. And I think that informs the whole movie.
I completely agree. But he also, because I was actually pretty good friends, I became friends with Jane Greer later in her life, and she said that Mitchum was remarkable because most of that was an act. It was a put-on that he didn't care, the baby I don't care thing. And he would show up on the set and say, so what are the lyrics? That's how he referred to his dialogue, was the lyrics. What are the lyrics? And then he would just have the script supervisor read his dialogue to him. And it was emblazoned in his mind. And he just remembered it all perfectly. And then Jane tried to do that, and she couldn't remember anything. And she was like blowing take after take after take. And she finally realized he's faking this. He is actually at home studying the script the night before and pretending that he's so cool he doesn't care. But he was way ahead of everybody else.
I love what she told you about Jacques Tourneur's direction to her was, and she was 22 years old, which is phenomenal when you look at this performance, 22, and had not really done that much. And Tourneur said to her, first half good girl, second half bad girl, impassif. No big eyes, which is probably a direction all actors should get. No big eyes. I wish somebody had said that to me.
Yeah, and Jane was funny because she said, and then I snuck a couple of big eyes in there to see if he would notice. She's, I think one made it into the film, and just at the right time.
Yeah.
Also, Kirk Douglas's, not his debut film, but close to it. I don't think Kirk Douglas has ever been better than in this movie. I mean, he did all kinds of great work, but man, he just explodes on the screen as Kirk Douglas.
And also how scary that it mirrored her later relationship with Howard Hughes. I mean, they had already had a relationship, and then she got out of that, and then when he took over RKO, he basically said, "You'll never work in this town again," which is what Witt does in the movie.
Precisely, yes. Jane was only 22, but drawing on kind of a lot of experience that she had. I know you've already tonight on the red carpet mentioned the Rudy Valley thing.
Do you want to share that?
Why not? I like to start fast at the TCM Festival.
There won't be after this.
Jane, when she came to Hollywood, she was brought here by two guys, Rudy Valley and Howard Hughes, who vied for her attentions. And Rudy Valley won because they got married. She married him when she was still a teenager, and then quickly decided that was a mistake when he introduced her to his massive pornography collection.
The marriage lasted 3 months.
He wanted Jane to be his fetish item, which was Hedy Lamarr. He was obsessed with Hedy Lamarr. He couldn't have Hedy Lamarr. He was going to make Jane Greer into
And he dyed her hair, right?
Dyed her hair black. She was rescued by Joan Harrison, the producer Joan Harrison, who cast her in a film called They Won't Believe Me, which she made just before this. And Joan changed her hair color, and she recognized what was going on, and actually put Jane Greer's name above the title they won't believe me. So it elevated her status at RKO, which didn't matter at all to Howard Hughes, who literally pretty much ended her career not long after this movie was made. Ended it for the time that he was running RKO. So the thing about this movie, you've talked about how the script can be confusing, okay? My advice, and let's do this, I'm assuming most of the people in the audience have seen this movie before, and they're coming back to experience it again. How many people in the audience have not seen this film before?
Wow.
Fantastic.
That's fantastic. Do you, no shaming, do you people who raised your hand realize how incredibly lucky you are that you are seeing this film for the first time on the big screen in a brand new restoration? I mean, I saw this movie in the dead of night on television for the first time, which has its own particular charm. But this is spectacular. I know you appreciate the way the movie looks.
Yeah, I want to say something about the opening, because I don't want to spoil anything, but the opening is so, it kind of defines the whole movie, because it's the great Nicholas Musaraka. And it starts in the way that all these movies of the 40s did, which I wish we could still do, because you have those big car screens, and it creates an instant frame, and you're looking at the guy's head from behind, and it's a fancy car with the top down, going into this rural town, which doesn't fit this fancy car in rural, so you already get this contrast. And then he goes into this gas station, where the fantastic Dickie Moore is. Dickie Moore, the most beautiful child actor ever, who's so good in this movie and so key to this movie. Fantastic. But it kind of sets it all up, and not only that, there are signposts, literal signs, pointing directions. And because the movie is confusing, you will actually see on these signs all the different locations that the movie takes you. And it's got LA, and it's got Lake Tahoe, and it's got Bridgeport, which is most important, because that was where, Bridgeport, Connecticut, where Robert Mitchum was born. So,
I mean, this is Bridgeport here, but Bridgeport is.
and I
Mitchum's
always
hometown.
wondered, like, is that a little bit of a joke? My mother was born in Bridgeport also, so here's to Bridgeport, Connecticut. And there's another question I have for you, because the voiceover was done at the same time that They Live by Night was already shot at RKO. Nick Gray had already shot it. It was being held in RKO. And you'll notice one of the lines in the voiceover is, "We seem to live by night." And I'm wondering, I don't know whether they stole that or which came first, because the
Wow.
book was called Thieves Like Us.
Is she impressive? I had never thought of that before, but I know the answer.
Please tell
Even
me.
though the question, but when They Live by Night was made, it was actually called Thieves Like Us, based on the original novel Thieves Like Us, and then Nick Ray changed the title to Your Red Wagon.
Oh, that's right.
That was what the movie was going to be called. So they only chose the title They Live by Night after this movie came out.
So do you think they heard that line?
Because They Live by Night was released after Out of the Past. And it's quite possible that somebody just heard that line and said, because he says, "We seem to live by night." And of course there was the Drive by Night, was already
Yes.
made at Warner Brothers
Yes.
before that, but.
I do want to say something about Jane Greer's costumes, because people talk about Jane as, the quintessential femme fatale, but she's so different than like Phyllis Dietrichson, because Jane's wearing white, and they dressed her in white for a lot of the film. And it's not until the end that she has that weird dark and that nun's habit kind of thing.
The snood, she wears a snood at the end.
But the costumer was Edward Stevenson, who was a guy who drew when he kind of went in and out of the studio. And little trivia is that he ended up doing all the Lucille Ball shows. Because Lucy had worked at RKO, she loved him and thought that he dressed her better than anybody. So he did from I Love Lucy to the very end shows.
It's interesting that Jacques Tourneur being French, in France, they call it mise en scène. right? That's what the work of the director is the mise en scène of the film. And when you see that on the posters and all that kind of stuff. And this film has the greatest mise en scène of any American noir film ever made. And Jacques Tourneur so understood that the appeal of this kind of story is just keep it moving. From one, and mise en scène actually, it means like the setting of the scene, And he knew that if you just keep going from one interesting location to the next and make those locations as evocative as possible, it's just the propulsion of the narrative. It doesn't have to really hang together.
Whatever happens to Rhonda Fleming? Where does she go?
I don't
It's
know.
a mystery.
She disappeared, but she has a great, and that's another thing. Rhonda Fleming was a teenager when she made this movie. Rhonda Fleming, I think, was 18 or 19 years old when she made this movie. And all your three leads in this film, none of them are yet 30 years old when they made this movie. Robert Mitchum was 29, Kirk Douglas was 26, and Jane Greer was 22. They do not make people like this anymore. Right? If you look at a 26-year-old today, he doesn't look like Kirk Douglas. I'm not ragging on my, but there were sterner stuff in the DNA back then. It's absolutely fantastic, and what a treat to be able to show this. I was really surprised so many hands went up when I said,
So lucky.
Seen the movie before. You guys are really in for it. This is such a fabulous film. Dana, any last words you want to say about this movie, or just PCM in general?
Baby, I don't care.
Fabulous Dana Delaney. You guys made the right choice. Not James Bond and This is the place to be. Enjoy.